This episode is rated M for mature audiences. The views and opinions expressed on this show are those of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect those of the PFC Entertainment Network or any of the affiliates that make this show possible.
This is the Pure Fury Creations Entertainment Network.
Where's the beat? And that's when you're wrong.
Go ahead. It's my day.
And the masters of the universe.
Something that you enjoy, like TV Guide.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
I pity the fool.
And we welcome you to What the 80s here on the PFC Entertainment Network. She is Jill Bain. I am Jason Klaus. We certainly appreciate you tuning in here this week. We have a very fun topic that Jill brought to the table this week. And we're going to get into that here in a moment or two, maybe three. A couple of things, though, right out of the gate. First of all, it's good to see you, Jill, as always. Thank you for taking the time out to be a part of this. But when we talk about the 1980s and the different sound bites that we could dive into, you know, these iconic things that when we hear them, they're like, oh man, that takes us right back to that era, that time. But how iconic was Eddie Murphy's laugh?
Every time we're sitting here and I'm listening to it, it always, if you watch, it always makes me smile every time.
Yeah, it you know, I made the open about a couple of months ago, I guess, you know, last month or whatever, and I tried to find different sound bites to incorporate into the open. Some of them come through perfectly. Eddie Murphy's laugh, the Macho Man Randy Savage, all the little electronic, you know, sounds and things of this nature. But there's other ones on there that did not come through. Like you have to really struggle to hear like Michael J. Fox or, you know, so I'm going to have to go back and really look at the open, cut it up. Plus, you know, I made it really stupid long. So I'm going to have to cut it down a little bit. Look, it's a work in progress here, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then we can turn around, you know, X amount of weeks later, look back and be like, this is where we started, this is where we're going, and you know, as long as you can see some sort of a progression, we're on the right path.
Yeah.
How's things? How was your week?
You know what? Really good. I had put in a special app to go to a different area and it got pulled.
Jill.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
What area, if you don't mind my asking?
Going to Body Shop.
Are you really?
Yep.
Bless your heart. How about that?
Yeah.
You excited?
Yes and no. And
Nervous?
let me explain why. I'm excited for the change. Not excited to leave. Like I've been really working with the same people for 13 years now. So that's going to be rough, but the roughest to leave, and not even my current team leader. But a team leader I had with the trim shop was upstairs. He was my team leader for a while downstairs, and he's one of them I make cakes for all the time.
Okay.
In fact, later tonight, because he doesn't know yet, I asked him what kind of cake he wanted for Monday so I can soften the blow a little bit.
Mm. So he has no idea this is
No.
coming. And by the time this show drops, it will already have been discussed. So,
Yeah.
oh, well, listen, I can understand that. But on the other hand, kudos to you for such a big change. Now, anybody who doesn't or has no idea about the environment that we work in, you and I, because
Mhm.
we work at the same place, just on different shifts. Um, you know, they're hearing this and they're like, oh, what's the big deal? It's, you know, whatever. Now there's more to it. Much
Mhm.
like you said, you know, you've been working with the same people for over a decade. You know,
Yeah.
and that does get, you know, that's the hard part about this. You form
Mhm.
friendships, you form, you know, that bond with your coworkers, and going to a completely new area, not even in the same building. You
Yeah.
know, that's not a lot of people would do that because of the fear of the unknown. I talk about it on the flagship show all the time. So I'm very proud of you
Thank
for
you.
taking that proverbial leap of faith unto yourself. I mean, was it just time for a change? You needed something new?
Kind of, because I had been in a kit cell, which is where you build up the racks that go to the line that, the people pull off to put on the truck and whatnot. And they really did some dirty shit and cut a lot. And then they took pieces from these kit cells and put them in other kit cells and overloaded them and forced me to a job that was god awful.
Hmm.
And I had put in for one and I got one. And like this past week was my first full week on that job. And I'm like, you know what? They're adding an element starting Monday. And I'm like, if it's not bad, because I was not expecting this yet.
Mm-hmm.
If it's still not bad, because it's a decent job, there's no heavy lifting, there's a lot of reaching over the head, but not that big of a deal. Once they put that element on, if it's not too bad, I might withdraw my special app.
Hey, it's always good to have a plan B in place. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I get it.
Yeah.
That's a smart way to do it. You know, again, especially since you know, again, if you don't work where we work, you have no shit idea what that environment's like. You know,
Eh,
Jill is being awful kind in her description. I could sit here and go into a fucking promo that would make people blush,
yeah.
if I can be honest.
Yeah.
Um,
And
it,
and really, like, the area we work in, it is hard on your body.
mm-hmm.
It's like my shoulders tore up from the one job because I was picking up heavier parts but having to reach like this, so messed up my shoulder a little bit. Um the other job that they forced me to was messing with the same shoulder and my back, which I've had back surgery, so it's really not, it wasn't ideal. And I told my husband, I'm like, it's just tearing up my body. Either if I don't get a decent job or I don't get pulled to body shop, I'm quitting.
Oh
I
wow.
just, it's like to the point where my body can't handle it. I'm old, Jason. I'm old.
You know, and that's the thing, Jill. It happens at least once a year, and then very heavily every 4 or 5 years, and
Mhm.
that's contract negotiations, or the if it goes south, a strike, or every year when they announce profit sharing.
Mhm.
You get people who go on social media who have never stepped foot in one of these places. I got to
Mhm.
watch how I say this, and they have the narrative, that we just sit on cushy chairs and push buttons all day. And I'm here to tell you,
No.
it could not be further from the truth. Are there jobs like that? Absolutely. But you got to have 25 to 30 years seniority after busting your ass on the assembly line and breaking our bodies down, because they look at a vehicle on the road, they have no fucking clue what all goes into building that vehicle, how many
None.
parts take to build that vehicle. And these are not Ford F-150s that are made out of aluminum. These are heavy duty fucking trucks, from the inside out. So I get that. It's funny you say the shoulder thing, because there's something happening with my shoulder all of a sudden. In the last couple of weeks, it started out as a little little twink or whatever. I'm like, oh man, that's a little sore. But as we move along here, I'm like, okay, this is lasting a little bit longer than it did yesterday. And so I don't wrestle anymore, so I know that that's not it. Not to say that it's not a residual effect from 30 years of wrestling, but I'm starting to wonder, shit, do I have like a bone spur or something going on, and my ligaments and things are rubbing up against? That's what it feels like, because it's in a very weird spot. So anybody who thinks that we have cushy jobs and it's easy to build these trucks, you can go get fucked, with all due respect.
Yeah. And even people from the line think that the kit cells are cushy.
Mm-hmm.
And do they have a little more freedom than being tied to the line? Sure they do. But when you get overloaded and you got management saying, oh no, you can't have help, you got to do this job because IE says you can do it.
Right. Again, i.e. being people who have never done this. They just come out of college. Well, on paper or on my computer screen, it should work.
Yeah.
That they tried pulling that shit a year or two ago. They're coming down, evaluating jobs and shit like this, and they were going to add elements to my job, which ultimately they have. They won that battle. But during the initial evaluation thing, and they're trying to tell me, well, you have time to do this, that, and the other thing. I swear to God, I went to my bag, I pulled out a brand new pair of gloves out of my bag, handed them to the dude. I'm like, do it.
Yeah,
show me how to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I don't know. Then shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
it's stupid.
They don't get it.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
And I know there was one day they did have them working on the IP line, and they couldn't keep up.
Yeah,
they could not keep up.
The IP line is a whole nother animal altogether.
Yeah.
So instrument panel, ladies and gentlemen, that's what IP stands for.
Yep. Or dashboard.
Dashboard, yeah. The thing that you look at quite frequently when you're driving for your speed and temperatures and radio and all that shit, that's IP line.
Yep.
And there's a lot that goes into it. You wouldn't think something like that would be as involved, but shit, man, these things can pretty much drive your truck for you at this point.
It's funny that the IP starts with this metal thing. It almost reminds me of like the frame of a swing set.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the wires start on the mag beam. And you're like, holy shit. Yeah. It's crazy how you start the line with this piece of metal and you end the line with a gorgeous looking dashboard.
Yeah. And then it gets picked up and taken over to the other side of the plant, all by robots, make no mistake about it. And then, it's up to another couple of humans to actually install this thing in the truck while the truck's moving, mind you.
While it's moving, there's no stopping it.
No. And by God, if that line does stop.
Everything's done while that line is moving. Yeah, but we're spoiled, Jason. We're spoiled. We're overpaid.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Listen, again, I will go ahead and I will reiterate, with all due respect, unless you know what you're talking about, keep your fucking mouth shut.
Yeah.
Okay. because you ultimately have no clue. Now, aside from, along those lines, and we'll go ahead and just use this part to have our big session this week. We will get to the topic at hand, I promise. But I totally lost my train of thoughts. Probably for the best. Probably for the best. Profit sharing. That's what it was. I have a huge fucking problem with the way this shit is publicly announced, because it ultimately compromises the safety of the employees.
Absolutely.
I don't really feel like it's anybody else's fucking business what we get for our bonuses and things of this nature. I don't care what anybody else gets. It's none of my business.
Right.
Nor is what we do anybody's business. But because it's what it is, and it's $1 billion corporation, we have
but don't take a picture in the plant.
Right. No pictures, no video, no this, no that. But you can go on Facebook. You can go on my fucking wall, and you can not a whole lot. Let's calm down. But I mean, there are some like there's a picture of me and Brian Balf on there, or me and Q, or who. It doesn't even matter. It's just it really bothers me that, and every time it comes out, then these bitches come out of the woodwork and start typing, all their nonsense about, they don't deserve this. And hey, make no mistake about it, Jill earned, anybody that works, especially on the assembly line, we have earned every red penny.
Every penny.
And I'm taking my profit sharing. I don't mind telling you. My girl and I are using that to go to Las Vegas in April. Calm down. We're going to WrestleMania. So yeah. I'll be while everybody else is talking shit, I'm going to be at the showcase of the Immortals, as it were.
That's exciting.
All right. Huh?
That's exciting.
It is. It was actually her idea, which not to use profit sharing, but she's like, I really want to do this for you, with you. I want to take you to WrestleMania. Nice. And I was like, holy shit. I don't know. Do you understand what you're saying here? And then I pulled out, like, it's a 2-night thing, and then there's Hall of Fame. Like, it's a weekend, man. And she's like, no, I really want to do this. And she's not a wrestling fan by any stretch of the imagination. Although she was here last night as we're recording this to watch the Royal Rumble, bless her heart. She withstood all my commentary over what was going on. But we talked about it last night, because it's the road to WrestleMania now. And she's like, I really want to do this. Now, we were going to fly. And with everything that happened last week with these plane crashes and collisions and shit like that, like, number one, I don't like flying to begin with. She's not a fan of it, but that's how we were going to get to Vegas. Now we're legitimately sitting down and looking, how long would it take to drive to Vegas? And it's 27 hours, which isn't terrible. It's like going to Florida, just in the opposite direction. So we're going to have to evaluate what we're going to do in that aspect. But
I'm a firm believer. If I was meant to fly, I'd have been born with wings. I was not.
Or a superhero who could fly.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. I've been on a couple of airplanes. Hated it every fucking time.
Nope.
Every time. I just don't like heights.
Me neither. That's a long way to fall.
Shit, yeah. I guess that's what it is. It's not the flying part. It's the rapid descent and then that poof at the end. I want no part of it.
None.
All right. Enough of that horse shit. Let's go ahead and look at. Stand by here. We are going to be looking at 15 things here, Jill, that have skyrocketed in value from the 1980s. And you sent me this list last week, and I just glanced at it. I think I got down to like the fourth or fifth thing. I'm like, well, this has to be the topic. And then I started thinking, man, this would have been a cool thing to have Sean Grugel on, because he has gone and reacquired a lot of the relics from the past that he had growing up. Um, I believe at this hour he is in Frankenmuth, Michigan, at the Snow Fest or Ice Fest or whatever the fuck they call it.
Snowfest. No, never done it.
Nah,
I don't like being
I went
cold.
there one year and it was cool for what it was, but I actually forget about it, if I can be honest. And I was like, oh yeah, that's going on. But yeah, that's where he's at right now. Otherwise, I would have called him in on this and be like, hey, I'm sure you have a couple of things you can add to that. But
Yeah,
be
definitely
that
some
as it
valuable
may,
input.
yeah, be that as it may, we're going to start from the bottom and work our way back up to the top. I don't know if these are ranked in any particular order. This is just how we do things around here. So coming in at number 15 is the original Sony Walkman. You had one of these?
I did.
These things were a go-to, and what's fun is you can go back and watch movies from the 80s, especially those movies that are set in New York. And if you just look like in the sidewalks as people are walking, everybody's got a Sony Walkman going.
Yep.
They're holding in their hand. They got the headphones on. Like this was a game changer in terms of mobile music. We didn't have streaming apps and Spotify and all this other shit. Like, this is, if you wanted to hear music on the go, this is what you had to get.
Yep. I've always been that person. I need music, whether it's while I'm driving, while I'm working, while I'm in the kitchen cooking. And that's kind of where Alexa has come in very handy, because I can just listen to what I want on there. And so and I don't remember how or when I got it. I don't know if it was birthday present, Christmas present. I just know I got one. And that went everywhere except for school, because you couldn't have them at school. But that went everywhere with me. Everywhere.
Now, the variation of this that had the cassette tape player in it, do you remember offhand if you had one that played the tapes, if what your first tape you put into a Walkman was?
Probably Bon Jovi. Not gonna lie. Probably Bon Jovi.
Slippery When Wet?
No.
The one before that?
My favorite, it's been years that I really haven't listened to a lot of them in years, except for about a year ago. I did get on Spotify and listen to each individual album that way. But their debut.
Okay.
That
Underrated.
was the first. Yeah. That was, I believe it was self-titled. The big hit from that was Runaway. Yeah. That was my favorite. I probably went through 2 or 3 copies of that.
Yeah, there's a few tapes in my past that I've bought multiple copies of because we wore the shit out of them. Slippery When Wet came out in 1986. It was their sophomore offering, and it's really what put them on the map. You Give Love a Bad Name. That was the first big hit off that album. And like, man, very rarely do you get the sophomore effort to eclipse their debut, but that's what happened. And then they were able to follow that up 2 years later with New Jersey.
Yeah.
And Bad Medicine was the first big hit off that album. Yeah, I'm down with John.
Yeah.
I know John Bon Jovi.
Yep. And you can't forget, what was it, 7,800 degrees Fahrenheit,
Mm-hmm.
which that was between the debut and Slippery When Wet.
Forgot about that album.
Yeah, that loved them all.
Forgot.
Loved them all.
Yeah, well, John Bon Jovi, man, he doesn't get the overall appreciation that I feel like he deserves,
Yeah.
and I'm not quite sure why.
Yeah.
But he's done some cool shit.
Yeah, and you know what? Another thing that was really good was being able to have something over your ears so not everybody could hear what you were listening to. Listening to like the comedians, the dirty comedians, and not have anyone else hear it.
Eddie Murphy,
Sam
Richard
Kinison,
Pryor,
George
Carlin. Yep. Yep. Had them all.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on in this countdown here. Vintage MTV memorabilia. Now, the picture they have on here is a Funko Pop of a television with the MTV logo on it. But if you can get any kind of original run T-shirts or posters with the MTV logo, some of that shit can go upwards of $1,100 on eBay apparently. Now this Funko Pop that they have on here is autographed, and I can't really tell whose autograph that is, but this particular piece did go for over $1,000 on eBay. Very interesting. I don't remember seeing a tremendous amount of MTV merchandise in the stores in the 80s. Do you?
I mean, maybe a T-shirt here and there, but no, I really don't remember a lot.
I don't either.
No.
You know, and back then there were more stores that dealt exclusively with the music and entertainment. Here in the lovely town of Lapeer, right downtown, for the longest time, there was a place called Hole in the Wall. And that's where we would go to for any kind of music memorabilia. But even back then, like as I'm sitting here thinking, I don't recall seeing a tremendous amount of MTV anything. So I can understand now if you do have any kind of original memorabilia from the 80s. Especially back then, you know, MTV actually played music. So, I mean, it ain't like that now. But be that as it may, you could be looking at a little bit of change, you know, if you have something, because people are buying that shit up now.
Yeah.
All right. 13 is right in my wheelhouse.
Yeah,
we're going to go on a little bit of a sidebar before we do, because late last week we were met with the news that John Irwin passed away. People may not know that name, but you damn well know his voice, because he was the voice of He-Man and Morris the Cat. But we're looking at the He-Man side of things here. One of the most iconic voices, and actually you hear his voice in our open. You can hear He-Man. You know, I have by the power of Grayskull and all this other stuff. Yeah. John Irwin, just a tremendous voice actor, and we wanted to take a moment here and express our condolences to his friends, family, and fans, because coming in at 13, Jill, is the original He-Man and the Masters of the Universe action figures. Holy shit, I wish I had kept these, because I had them all.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck yeah. I was all about He-Man. He-Man was on my radar right before wrestling came into my life.
Okay.
But, once wrestling came in, it was over. You know what I mean? But you look at the different action figures, and there's been several documentaries and specials that deal with He-Man and what made this such a popular franchise. And it did start with the toy line. Then you had all the play sets of Castle Grayskull, Snake Mountain, and then the vehicles came into play. Just it was such a awesome toy line. And at that time, I mean, I was the target demo man, and I was hooked. Actually, it was the cartoon that got me, invested in it, and then the action figures had come into play. But some of these things, if they're in good shape, you can get upwards of 500 bucks a pop for original Masters of the Universe toys. Damn, I wish I still had mine.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy that something that probably at the time, cost $5-6 is now worth so much.
Right. That's an interesting aspect to it too, because you look at action figures nowadays, and they've actually re-released Masters of the Universe, the upgraded version, but they went to great lengths to try to replicate the original box art, the original figure. It's really cool, but these bitches are going for 15-20 bucks a pop. I think of wrestling figures, because I still collect the ones that I want, not all of them, but like my nephew, big wrestling fan. I buy him action figures for Christmas and his birthday and shit like that. And just the basic figures are 10-12 bucks. I can remember buying the big rubber LJN figures for $5, and that was on the high end. Just it's inflation.
Yep, crazy. So I was just thinking it.
All right. Certainly, I've got to believe your family had the Polaroid camera. Jill, what in the actual fuck?
My mom had a regular camera. And then when my stepdad moved in, he had, I don't even remember, but it was like a top of the line 35 millimeter camera. And yeah, isn't that crazy how when he moved in, I want to say in like 87, that was top of the line. It wasn't the 110 film or anything like that. It was a 35 millimeter, top of the line. I did have a Polaroid, but it wasn't until the 90s.
Yeah. There is a box down around the corner here that my mom had, and it is filled to the brim with Polaroid pictures. And and I can remember we weren't allowed to touch it. Yeah. Because there's no telling what we would have taken pictures of, but just the fact that you could snap a picture and it comes out underneath this thing, and you had to sit there and wait 3 to 5 minutes for it for the picture to come up.
Yep.
That was technology at its best.
Absolutely. I remember when I got one, I just thought it was the coolest thing. I believe I got it one year for Christmas from my father-in-law. And it was after we had started dating and we had Judy. And I'm like, I just don't, like, I couldn't afford to go out and just have film developed. Not that it was super expensive, but it was just, a pain in the ass. So I'm like, I would just love instant pictures. So I got one for Christmas, but it wasn't in the 80s. It was in the 90s.
And they're starting to make a comeback. But like everything else that makes a comeback, it is a smaller, more condensed version of it. My daughter got one.
Yeah.
And she was, she's like, oh, I got a Polaroid camera. I'm like, what the fuck do you know about Polaroid cameras? And she showed it to me, and like it fit in the palm of her hand. It like it could. And she, she's 10 years old. She doesn't have very big hands at 10 years old.
Yeah.
But the pictures that have come out are like that.
Yeah, aren't they? Can't you get them with their stickers though?
Yep, that's why she wanted it, because
Okay.
she wanted to use the stick. She's an entrepreneur to her core. I don't know where she gets that
I was
from.
just gonna say I don't know where she would get it from, but
yeah, but she she crafts and she designs, and like she's very creative. Very creative, and that's what she wanted to incorporate that camera for. And I'm like, yeah, yep, you're my kid. There is no doubt about that, because I would have done the exact same goddamn thing. All right. I feel like this one is in your wheelhouse. Vintage band t-shirts. Now, we all know Jill is an aficionado of t-shirts. Like,
yes.
she's got them.
Yeah.
What's the oldest t-shirt you have?
Currently, well, I've been trying to go through and get rid of some, but I would say currently the oldest one. Well, I had originally bought it for my husband, and he was like, "It's too big for me. I like big baggy shirts," so I stole it. And I want to say I bought it for him probably 12 years ago. And it is, you are going to laugh because it's 80s related. It is the Al Bundy football jersey from Polk High.
Oh, I love that. That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal. What they have here, concert tees from iconic 80s bands like Metallica, Guns N' Roses, and The Cure are now worth a small fortune among music aficionados and collectors of vintage memorabilia. Priced for their bold graphics and cultural significance, shirts from this era can easily sell for over $100, with autographed tees going for much more. Um, I have totes. I have drawers. I've got too many T-shirts. I think I don't even know what the oldest shirt I still have is. Probably from the Attitude Era of WWF, like all my original Stone Cold Steve Austin shirts. I kept those. Even as I outgrew them or they started to wear. I have plans for them. Like I want to like cut them up and make a blanket out of them.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen people do this shit?
Yes.
I think that was I'm not going to ever wear them again, but I don't want to get rid of them because they have sentimental value
Right.
for me. You know what I mean? But yeah, I've got way too many T-shirts. That's for sure.
Yeah. I would say the band shirt that I had the longest. I think I got it in middle school, and I wore it all through middle school, all through high school, all through dating my husband. And finally, right around the time Judy was, I would say 2 or 3, it became a nightgown for her, and it was an Overkill t-shirt.
I was sitting here thinking, what was the oldest band T-shirt that I had, and there's 2 that come to mind. One I know was in 1988. Actually, I think they both were. Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction.
Mm-hmm.
AC/DC, Blow Up Your Video, with Angus Young was on it. We're like jumping out of this thing. Like I remember it like it was yesterday. Now my buddy Jason Cloyd had a I feel like he had a Motley Crue shirt that he wore all until there was just holes all over. I'm like, bro, burn the motherfucker. Like there you look like Tarzan at this point. It's just like it's just burn it. So when
Yeah.
the day came that he got rid of it, like he made a point to call me, hey, I want you to know I got rid of the shirt. I'm like, fucking about time.
You know, and for me, because I'm the only girl and my mom wanted a girl. And what she got was a tomboy because when, like, I would go to the store for jeans and I'm like, we had a store here in Saginaw, right up until I would say like 93, and it burned in a fire. And that was devastating for me because it's where I got all my shirts. It was called Heavy Metal Unlimited.
Okay.
And my mom, I'm not buying you that shit. So I'd call my dad. I'm like, Dad, I need some shirts from the heavy metal store. And he'd say, I'll pick you up on Saturday. And he would take me over there and let me buy. Well, at the time they were like $10, and he would let me buy 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd come home and my mom said, I gave birth to a girl. I know I did.
Oh, that's fun. Okay. Now we're starting to come into the top 10. And at number 10 is the Rubik's Cube, the original 1980s version. I hated this toy.
Mm-hmm.
It annoyed me to no end. I played with it probably less than a handful of times. It made me feel stupid. I just, but now if you have one still in the original package, they can sell for upwards of $130. Now I feel like, with as iconic as the Rubik's Cube is, a vintage original version, still in the original package, I feel like would be going for a hell of a lot more than
Yeah.
$130.
I would think so.
Where you at on the Rubik's Cube?
We either took stickers off,
Yep.
or we took it apart.
Yep.
It was the only. Now my brother did solve it once. My middle brother, he did solve it once. But I recently seen, I can't remember if it was a video or a graphic or something, where someone said, like, if you do these same moves like 9 times, you'll solve it.
Interesting.
I don't know if that's true.
Well, where the fuck were they at back in the 80s? Because I'm here to tell you.
They probably weren't born yet, because it was probably someone like
Fair.
15 that figured it out.
Fair. Totally fair. All right. Aspiring musicians in the 80s. Because I don't know. It seems like, 3 out of every 5 kids were forming a band.
Yeah.
Garage band. A lot of them didn't have the luxury of getting state-of-the-art music equipment, instruments. Drums were used from empty paint cans. Cymbals were the tops of your pots and pans. The guitar may have been your kid brother's or sister's Fisher Price gimmick, but you're learning how to. But the cream of the crop, as they say, would have landed the Casio. Even the word Casio, just like, damn.
Right.
Nothing screams 80s like Casio.
Nothing.
Casio VL Tone keyboard. Were you, you loved music. You loved the 80s hair bands and all that. Do you have musical talent? Did you aspire to be in a band?
I mean, sure I did. Because when I was a teenager, you had Doro Pesh, Lita Ford, Joan Jett, Vixen. Of course I wanted to be in a band. Can I play an instrument? Absolutely not. Can I sing? Fuck no.
Yeah, we had a little neighborhood band. Myself, my brother, and our two neighbors, and we we had a Fisher Price tambourine. I don't know where the fuck we got it. We had the Fisher Price guitar. I don't know where that came from. In '87, I think maybe for Christmas, Santa brought me electronic drum pads. So I was like, "Oh shit, we are on to something." Our band was called Iron Lightning.
Oh, I love
Okay.
it.
Yeah, yeah. Made the design. I wish I still had my original drawn out design for the logo and shit like that. And as a sidebar, um, my brother and I talked about that very shortly before he passed away.
Mm.
And we always remembered that. You know, like, man, do you remember we almost did that? And like, we didn't have a lick of musical talent, and like you're saying, I can't sing very well. I can pound the fuck out of electronic drum pads, though. I don't mind telling you. But my idea is for his birthday that year, I had replicated on the computer screen the original Iron Lightning logo, and I was going to screen print it on a few different things for him for his birthday. Um, Everything happened, and I had gone into my files, and I guess I didn't forget about it, but it wasn't in the forefront of my mind, and the folder that it was in was untitled for whatever reason. And I'm like, what's in this folder? And I clicked on it and I saw it, and holy fuck, you want to talk about opening up the floodgates.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, Iron Lightning, we were gonna be.
I
Well,
like it.
yeah, we were pretty, I mean, we were entrepreneurs back then. You know, we just didn't realize that's what it was called.
Yeah.
Again, not a lick of musical talent. All right, this one here, number 8. Vintage comic books. Now I've seen both sides of this. Unless there is an era of comic books that are worth a shit ton of money, and then there's a block of them where they made so many of them. You know, you'll probably get $1 or $2 for them.
Yeah.
And then there's another block where it's like, okay, these ones are more valuable. The ones from the 1980s seem to be on the rise right now, because they were comic books really started to become all of the rage in the 1980s. Certainly not on the level that it is now with, you know, all the Marvel movies and
Right.
the DC comic movies and all this shit. But there are some comic books out there, like for example, first editions in mint condition of Batman and Superman and things of this nature, over $20,000 for a fucking comic book. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? You collected comic books as a kid and you forget about them, and you go up into the attic, you open up a box, and there sits um, one of these sought after comic books. You could immediately have between 10 and 20 grand in your hand. Isn't that crazy to think about for something like that?
So crazy for paper and ink. That
I
throws
mean,
me.
I read comic books, but not exclusively, to the point, you know, and I don't know if you and I were talking about it. I know I've had conversations with Sean about it. Like, I just didn't follow my favorite superhero stories exclusively through comic books, especially now with the movies that are out. I'm watching what they're giving me, and
Right.
that's what I'm going on.
Yeah.
I don't have the knowledge. It's like, well, in issue this, that, and the other thing, the sub story is supposed to be this, and the reboot is supposed to be that. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm watching what you're giving me.
Yeah.
Sidebar: do you have a favorite superhero?
No.
No.
Mm-mm.
It's Batman for me, in case anybody was wondering.
Yeah, no, I guess that's one of the things I didn't get into as a tomboy, I guess. Did I play with Hot Wheels? Absolutely. Did I find the coolest ones that my brothers had and steal them for myself? Sure did. But I never got into comic books.
That's fair. People. Yeah. Okay. People in comic books, they take this shit very, very seriously, and
Yes.
and I appreciate that level of fandom.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people can say the same thing about my fandom for pro wrestling. They don't understand it. So
Right.
if you don't understand something, it's easy to condemn it, talk shit about it, because it's easier to do that than to actually learn. Now,
Right.
um, comic book nerds or whatever the fuck. Like I don't think it makes anybody a nerd because they like to read or they have a fandom for um, this particular genre of entertainment. It doesn't make you a nerd.
Right.
Now, how you present yourself, that's what gets called into question.
Yeah.
Uh, but doesn't even matter. It's important that people have their thing to go to, and I can appreciate that. For little girls in the 1980s, their go-to was the Cabbage Patch dolls, Cabbage Patch Kids. And I mean, they may started making some for boys too. I think I may have told the story. I know it was on Power Tripping through the 80s. My parents bought my brother and I each a boy Cabbage Patch doll, and we cut its hair
Yep.
because they lost to Brutus the Barber Beefcake. So yeah, we cut their fucking hair off. I don't refresh my memory here, Jill. Did you have a Cabbage Patch Kid?
I did. She had long. This is obviously not my natural hair color.
What?
I know, right? My natural hair color is almost jet black, but not quite. The Cabbage Patch Kid I had, she had long hair, and I don't remember if it was a ponytail or pigtails. And her name was, because you know how they come pre-named.
Yep.
Her name was Cleo Jill.
No kidding.
And that's why my mom picked it out. Because her middle name was my name and she had brown hair.
Did they? I don't. I guess she must have known before she bought it that was going to be the name. I was trying to remember if we knew, whether it was on the packaging or whatever, what these things were going to be named. Because the one I had was named Waylon, like Waylon Jennings.
Well, he got whaled because he lost to Brutus. So
And got a haircut for it.
aptly named. So I think the birth certificates were visible.
Yeah.
I think. But yep, I had one. I didn't get it the year they were all the rage, though. I want to say it was maybe a year or two later. I was always late to the trends. Always. But I still had one.
It wasn't that we were late to the trends. It was just that my parents weren't going head deep into the hysteria.
Right.
That's what this was with these things.
Oh yes.
I do remember the Christmas. They were so huge. They were all over the place, and people were fucking fighting each other.
Yeah.
In Kmart for these things.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, it's not that deep, calm down. Just like fucking Beanie Babies. Like that was, I mean, that's on the polar opposite end of this countdown, because nobody gives a fuck about Beanie Babies now.
Nope.
But back in the day, man, like people were walking out of McDonald's and quitting their jobs because it became so stressful. People were it was a fevered pitch.
Yeah.
And it's like, my God, calm the fuck down. It is not that deep, man.
Yeah, and I will tell you, my mom was one of them people that got all the Beanie Babies because she thought me and my brothers would never have to work because these Beanie Babies were going to be priceless. And yeah, did not work out that way.
Mm. All right. Number 6 here. Number 6 is actually when I saw this, I thought of my girlfriend. My girlfriend loves shoes, and she loves this particular brand of shoes, and to the point to where she felt like I needed variations of this brand of shoes, and she has bought me, I think, 4 pairs now since we've been together. She's like, "Hey, I saw these. I thought you would like them," and she nails it out of the park because I don't like spending money on shit like that. Like I have 3 pairs of shoes, black ones, white ones, and dress shoes, and but I will wear them out. I will get my money's worth out of them. Back in the day, that was a status symbol thing. What you wore on your feet. I remember when Reebok pumps came out.
Yep.
And if you had Reebok pumps in their initial run, you were somebody.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know. But before that, we had the OG of the designer shoes in this genre, Air Jordans. And I remember, when Air Jordans came out, much like I just said about the Reeboks, like everybody wanted these things. Now, if you happen to have the original run of the Air Jordan 1 sneakers, the red, black, and white ones that were in correlation with the colors of the Chicago Bulls, you could get nearly 50 grand for these sons of bitches.
Isn't that crazy?
Is that crazy, or is it crazy that people for the longest time were beating the shit out of each other, killing each other,
stealing their shoes
for their shoes?
That's crazy.
I think I had 1 pair of Air Jordans when I was a kid, and it was my 7th grade, going into junior high school. My mom allowed me to get a pair of Air Jordans. They were white and purple, and I don't know why I remember that, but nowadays, much like the design that they have here in the first Air Jordan series, my girl, she's got me shoes that match my Detroit Tigers shit, my Detroit Lions shit, and my Michigan State shit. She loves me.
But now when you wear any of those, do you feel like now you have the complete ensemble? Do you feel like
I feel put together? Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Because I don't wear those shoes to work. And it actually drives her nuts. She's like, "I didn't buy these for you to sit and look and just look at them. I bought them for you to wear them."
Dirty.
Right. And that's why I tried to tell her. I was like, "Baby, you don't understand. I don't know exactly how much these shoes were, but I also know right around the price range that they are, and I'm not going to fuck them up."
Yeah.
Now, I do wear them when I'm doing anything outside of there. If I'm going someplace, and if you've seen me on Fatal 4-Way, you've seen me in person, like Tim Sheridan and I did a few live streams at a restaurant in Lapeer here. Like I will, it is cool because I do feel like, okay, I am put together from head to toe. My hat matches my shirt, which matches my shoes, and I swear to God, I was never going to be that way. But the hat and shirt thing, like that's been universal. Like I have to have that shit match. I don't care.
Right.
The shoes thing, I just never. That's why I either had a white pair or a black pair. Which one goes better with? Those are pretty universal. But now that you got that splash of color on it, I'm like, fuck. Now I'm going to have to go get red ones. Now I'm going to have to go, you know what I mean?
Yeah, now you're that person.
I'm that guy, right? My friend Derek. Do you know Derek Vert?
Yes.
He used to make the Shop Rat shirts.
Yep.
Okay. Love that guy to death. But that is a man that's got way too many pairs of shoes, to the point to where he had to like build a whole closet, walk-in closet, and that's all it is shoes. Keeps these bitches in their boxes. If I could, like, he did I don't know if it was a TikTok video or he had sent me a video. He took a video of all his different pairs of shoes, and I'm talking like it seems like in the hundreds pairs of shoes. And I'm like, damn, that he's got a little bit of coin wrapped up in his shoe collection, but he looks like $1 million every time I see him. You know, he is very well put together because he's got just as many hats as he does shoes. So, you know, anytime you see him, he looks like $1 million. And, you know, I can appreciate that. Now, technology in the 80s. We've talked about it in various episodes and various forms. But the original Apple Macintosh computer is kind of what set the bar. Yep. This is what spawned a lot of ideas for movies, war games.
That was my first
weird
thought.
Science. Anything that was technologically based dealt with the Apple Macintosh. We did not have one of these. I don't think I got my first computer until I was probably 20, something like that. But you know, these things had the floppy disks, and you know, you can't touch that little thing at the end of it because they'll erase all of your content on there.
Yep.
Where are you at on the Apple Macintosh?
I think the only time, I mean, we had them at school, and I can count in elementary school on one hand how many times I got on that computer. But every one of them times I died of dysentery.
Oh, well, if anybody has a previously owned used model, you can sell it for upwards of $2,000. Still, at this, you know, it's $2,000 for something like this.
Yeah, that's a little crazy.
But like it says here, it paved the way for everything from modern PCs to smartphones. So this is where it can be traced back to.
Definitely.
4 is a Swatch watch. I didn't have one of these. Did you?
Nope.
Celebrated for their colorful designs and affordable prices, Swatch watches were all the rage in the 80s. Today, limited edition models like the Kiki Picasso or the Jellyfish are now highly prized and can command prices reaching into the thousands. No. This is... For anybody that's watching, oh man, of course the lighting's going to be fucking weird. That's what these things look like.
Yeah. I always, personally, I thought they were ugly.
Yeah. It just wasn't, like, when I think of watches that I had as a kid, I think one had Snoopy on it with a very light blue band.
That sounds familiar.
His hands were the, you know, the arms that told you the time, and then the calculator watches had come out.
Yes.
Do you remember these?
Yep, I did not have one. My brother did, and they got to the point that they were the schools here in Saginaw. They banned them.
They did in Lapeer too. Because kids would be sitting there during math tests and trying to be all cool and incognito and you know, put in the calculations to get that answer. Yep. And couldn't wear them.
Yep, the watch I had, I can remember seeing it. There used to be a store here. I don't know if it was a chain store or just a local thing. The store was called Tepe's, and it's been closed for a long ass time. But I remember seeing a watch in the catalog, and I ended up getting it for Christmas that year. It was the red leather band and like a little round petite face because it was a girl's watch. And the second hand just had this thing that just went back and forth, and it was a heart. It was like a cutout of a heart, and that was like a little heartbeat. It was cool. But my mom was also a firm believer you do not get a digital watch until you know how to tell time using an actual clock. And I want to say my Fitbit is the only digital watch I have ever owned.
Is that right?
Yep.
You know, I can appreciate that because there are people, and I don't know why this isn't taught more or more vastly, but I do know of people who are of the age that should know how to tell time from an analog clock, and they don't.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't understand that. I they're like, well, no, it's digital. No, we didn't have digital watches and clocks back then.
Yeah.
I can remember the alarm clock and the time on it, like it would flip. The numbers would.
Yep.
There was no digital anything in the early 80s. Now, once we got past 85 going in, to the latter part of the decade, they started to become more of a prominent thing, man. But like clocks on the walls at school, anywhere, you had to tell time by where the hands were on that clock.
Yep.
And I'm now that I say that, I wonder if that's why the clocks on the PFC store don't sell as well, because you actually have to tell time. No, I'm just kidding. Now, number 3, another franchise that was very much in my wheelhouse, right around the same time as He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, the first edition Transformers toys. You want to talk about a game changer. These toys were the shit. They were also a little bit pricier than your traditional action figures and things of this nature. Let's put this in context here. At this time, the action figure lines, like we had said, Masters of the Universe, Star Wars, G.I. Joe. If you were a boy, these were your go-to franchises, right? Girls primarily had Strawberry Shortcake. They had Rainbow Bright. Who?
Barbie.
Yeah, Barbie's the big one. Mm-hmm. Then Transformers came out, and these things you could turn from vehicle to robot.
Yep.
And some of them were pretty difficult to transform. You had to move them in just certain way so you didn't break them, and if you broke them, you were fucked.
Yep. Because now it's stuck that way forever.
Right. These toys are to this day one of the most sought after. Toy, if you can find them still in their original boxes, unopened, with the popularity of the movies that have come out over the last decade or so, to the new cartoons and things of this nature, what they're calling cartoons nowadays. But figures like Optimus Prime, Grimlock, Jetfire, and Starscream are selling for hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Again, I wish I kept them. But if I had kept them in their boxes, I wouldn't have had the joy of understanding just how fucking amazing these toys were, because they were awesome. Just awesome.
My stepbrother had one, and I remember, once in a while he would let me play with it. Because like I said, I had Barbies, but I preferred Hot Wheels. I was a weird girl, but I grew up around all boys.
Right.
So it wasn't abnormal for my mom to go in and clean my room while I was in school and come out and say, "Why are your brother's Hot Wheels under your bed?"
Can appreciate that. Number two is iconic on so many different realms.
Mm-hmm.
For fashion, for music videos. It became a staple for a hot minute.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Jackson's Thriller jacket, the red and black one.
Yep.
And these things were so popular. This jacket and the Beat It jacket became so popular, they replicated them and sold them in stores for $100. And back in the 80s, $100 for a jacket was a lot.
Yes.
But this was Michael Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
This was Thriller. Thriller was the biggest album of the 1980s.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest selling albums of all time to this day.
Yep.
The original that he actually wore in the Thriller video was auctioned for nearly $2 million. $2 million for a fucking jacket. Replicas, you can, if you have a replica, wait a minute. If you happen to own a Thriller album signed by Jackson, it could be upwards of $20,000. Jesus Christ. I remember these being in the store. I remember, and they had two variations of them. They had the original red and black, and then they had a black and white one. Now, I never saw him wear a black and white one, but this was a variation of it. They did the same thing with the Beat It jacket. The Beat It jacket was red, but they came out with red ones and black ones. And I could not convince my parents, no matter what I did, no matter what I promised I would do, it just wasn't going to happen. Of the two, Thriller or Beat It, which did you prefer?
Jacket wise?
Yeah.
Honestly, Beat It.
For real, right?
Yeah. I don't like all the geometric shit with the Thriller one. It looks like it would hurt if someone tried to hug you.
Yeah. Yep. 100% on that. Number one. Should be no surprise if you're paying attention and you grew up in this era, this will be no surprise. The original Nintendo Entertainment System. They have a picture of the original box art here, and like it is taking me right back to 1984, 85.
Mm-hmm.
It was launched in 83, and it brought classics like Super Mario Brothers and The Legend of Zelda into living rooms worldwide. But today, used NES consoles can fetch hundreds of dollars, about $200 on eBay, thanks to their status as the OG console that started it all. The Nintendo Entertainment System changed people's lives.
Yep.
From those who created it, manufactured it, and played it. Now we have all these PlayStations and Xboxes, and you can, play with people across the fucking globe in real time. And it's insane to think just how big the video game market has become and how vast it has expanded into multiple genres of entertainment now. I mean, they're making Mario Brother movies. You know what I mean? But for gamers around the world, it started with this as far as the big boom. Now, prior to the launch of Nintendo, we had Atari.
Yep.
And then that's what I had to start with, the Atari 2600.
Yep. My brothers had one. The only game I really ever played on Atari was Pitfall.
Yep. Pitfall. I wanted the NES because I had gone over to a buddy of mine's house who had one, and he had pro wrestling video game for the Nintendo, and like it wasn't a WWF thing. I'm like, who the fuck is Starman? When that was one of the characters on there. Because when I think Starman, I'm thinking Jeff Bridges
Yeah.
from the movie.
Yep.
You know, you look at some of those iconic wrestling characters in that game, but that's also where I got introduced to Mario, Duck Hunt, their Excite Bike, where you could create your own course, Double Dribble, Blades of Steel, just a Tecmo Bowl football. I can remember all of these. It was a fun time, but it was absolutely, the Nintendo is what really started this crazy boom
Yeah.
in the world of video games. How old were you when you first picked up a controller for the Nintendo?
We didn't get one until 1988.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have been about 14. And my mom had bought it for, I have two older brothers, bought it for all three of us. Guess how many times Joe got to play?
Not very many.
Not very many. No, not very many. I did learn, how you could get like unlimited guys in Mario, unlimited lives. Yeah. I did know how to do that. Yeah, but no, it was usually my oldest brother because he was the oldest and the biggest.
Mm-hmm.
So he would just whip the shit out of everybody for his time on the game. And then by the time he'd be bored with it, it was my bedtime.
That wasn't done by accident.
No. Dick.
Pardon me. Yeah, nowadays they have come out with these plug and play things that is designed to be a lot like the original Nintendo with a lot of the original games.
Mm-hmm.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention Mike Tyson's Punch Out.
Oh yeah.
Because when that game came out, based a lot, well, solely on the popularity that Mike Tyson had in that time as the heavyweight champion of the world, knocking bitches out in 15 seconds.
Yeah.
People were paying $49.95 for an HBO pay-per-view to watch this dude fight, and the entrances and introductions were longer than the fight itself.
Yeah.
But the video game, when the video game came out, and it was like, this was a game changer. Everybody was playing Mike Tyson's Punch Out.
Mike Tyson's Punch Out caused Judy's first swear word.
Is that right?
Yeah. My husband and I worked together, and when he got home from work, the three of us, when we got home from work, the three of us, I would most likely had a book in my hand, and he would be sitting on the floor, and Judy would be literally right next to him. Well, every night, and I can't think of the guy's name, the one character that was a little more difficult to beat. Bald Bull, maybe?
Yeah.
And every night, my husband would say, oh, this guy's a fucker. Well, the one night he's playing it, and he didn't say it. So Judy felt the need to say it for him. And she said, this guy's a fucker.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And it's funny that, that's one of your memories about that. But I mean, I understand it. Look, the other day, I say the other day, but it was a couple of weeks ago, was the first time I had heard my son say the F word. And I was just like it took me back. But I know where he heard it. You know what I mean? I have tried to keep a PG-14 language around my children, but every once in a while, one would slip out.
Yeah.
You just couldn't help it. Plus, he's on the baseball team. So, they're just running off at the mouth.
Yeah.
Just because they think they can. But to actually hear that come out of his mouth, I was like, it took me a second. I was like, the fuck did you just say? But how could I say that? You know what I mean? So I just kind of no-sold it and just let it, because I don't want him, if he's going to talk to me, I don't want him to feel like he has to censor himself. If he wants to rattle off a line of obscenities in order to get whatever he's feeling out,
Yep.
I would much rather he do that than something physical that's going to hurt him or somebody else, or
Absolutely.
put anybody else in any kind of ill situation. So yeah, fire away. I don't give a shit. I
Yeah.
get it. I really truly do. This was a fun list. This was a good find, Jill.
Thanks. I got to thank Google for that
Really,
because, Google News, that's where it came up through. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. So I sent it to you.
No, I'm really glad that you did. And it was cool. It was fun to go back and relive some of that, look back on, especially things like Masters of the Universe and Transformers, and like I can remember like Eternia was my bed.
Yeah.
I had it all set up, well, on one side of the bedroom, and on Jeff's side of the bedroom, well, that's where Skeletor lived. That's where Snake Mountain was set up at, and it's like, even back then, I'm like, I am putting way too much thought into this. I remember thinking that as a kid, because we would darken that half of the room, like we would run a sheet around, to split the room up and then block the window on his side so it was a little bit darker,
Mm-hmm.
because Snake Mountain wasn't Eternia. It was, that's where the bad guys live, so they had to be darker and more. Like I said, I put way too much thought into that.
Creative.
Just, well, it all started with what if. Let's go ahead and start winding this episode down. If anybody has any questions, comments, feedback, show topic ideas, anything of the sort, you can hit us up over on the PFC Entertainment Network page on Facebook, klaus2theheart@gmail.com or pfcnetwork.net. And check out the online store, pfcstore.printify.me, for all the latest merchandise from this show and all of the great shows that we have here on the network. And on February the 14th, is going to drop the new spring lineup. And I've actually, they will be on the main store, but I've went ahead, Jill, and I've given it its own store. So beginning on February 14th, yes, that is Valentine's Day, you can go to pfcspring.printify.me for our official spring lineup of new merchandise: baseball jerseys, hats, yard flags, yard signs, things of this nature. Because once we get out of the doldrums of winter, people are going to want to go outside and spruce their house up. Well, listen, nothing spruces a house up more than a house flag with one of your favorite logos from the PFC network. Think about getting me a couple of them and putting them on my dad's house and not tell him. Just
surprise.
Just rolling up in the driveway and there's a flag with my face on it. Like, who wouldn't want that? I better not. Somebody will come in and deface it, and then that's going to hurt my feelings. But be that as it may. Anything else you want to throw out there before we get out of here for the week?
No, I think that's about it.
All right. Well, this was a great episode. Thank you so much for sending this to me, and we're looking forward to another great episode when you tune back into What the 80s next Wednesday here on the PFC Entertainment Network. For Jill, I'm Jason. Go out, be awesome to yourselves and to each other, and we'll see you next week on What the 80s here on the PFC Entertainment Network.